Welcome back to another one of our restoration videos. We're gonna pick up right where we left off and get right back to building the plank for the back of Rat Sink. Looks like we got about 58 inches here. 58 inches on the board we were using last time brings us to, where is that? Right here. So unfortunately, it looks like we're not gonna be able to get a third plank out of that piece of wood, but it's not the end of the world as long as it's the same size. Different kind of grain because we are going to paint it. I saw that Daniel Loverbeek mentioned in the last video it would have been nice to have, you know, all these planks on here and stain and varnish it. I think it would have looked pretty cool having this kind of grain all in one piece on the back, but looks like we are going to have to just do 2 of these and then go look for another piece over there and see what we got. So before I even bring this over to the boat, I'm just gonna quickly run it through the jointer here and make sure I have a nice edge to work with. Now I have my piece of wood in a really nice position right now. So I'm just going to pin it down with a couple of screws and get rid of these clamps so I can begin to fit this onto the back. Now, of course, at some point I'm going to have to lay out the fasteners in a certain pattern, but taking inspiration from this, I can see they did a straight line on the batten. So that means just a couple of screws I can use to hold this down. I'm going to put one here, and I'm going to put one here in line with the batten and spaced appropriately for each of them. Now I have a couple of fasteners in there holding the plank on. They're not set at the appropriate depth just yet, but they are just in there to kind of hold the piece of wood in place. And I have a nice edge that I can begin to work up with for the next piece of wood here. So there we go, we got that roughly clamped down in position, and we can begin to fit the plank so that it'll kind of push on in. And then of course we can set the height on this batten, get that ready, and move on to the next piece of wood. Fits really nice and tight in there, and this is up on top of that edge. I might just put a little clamp on here to pull this in, and we can go over to the other side and get that done as well. Now we have that fitting on there. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time and mark the back side of it to show where the batten is sitting, so I can then mark the next seam for the final plank. We got that piece of wood cut down. You can see I have plenty of batten left to put in my fasteners for the next piece. So I'm going to do exactly what I did on this one. Put a couple of fasteners in here just to hold it in place. Might even use a little less this time, to be honest with you. And then we can move on to the final piece. So there's the next board installed. Something to keep in mind, I'm not making them exactly perfect because once I put that piece of ply in behind here, it's going to change how everything sits by just a little bit. So I'm not gonna go absolutely crazy with fitment right now. I'm just trying to get it relatively close. But that being said, we're gonna move on to our final piece here. So I have my third and final piece of wood here, and I'm just putting it down into position. So I have to fit it underneath the keel, but if you've been watching closely, you'll note that the middle section is the highest up, the farthest out section is the farthest down. So if I cut it to this height, is it gonna go farther down this way or is it gonna go farther up this way? And that's simple enough to answer by taking this piece of wood that I've put a little mark on, showing me roughly the height, and then bringing it over here, showing me I have plenty of height. I'm gonna make the cut right there where I need it to be, and then I can continue shaping that piece of wood on. So there we go, I have the planks set up so the sizing is relatively close enough. Of course it fits under here, but at this point I'm actually going to remove the planks and begin to apply the marine ply onto the back of this. And the reason I'm not going to finish fitting this plank here is because I don't know what the stack tolerance amounts are going to be once I put that marine ply on. So I'd rather have extra material everywhere so I can move this into position once that piece of ply goes on there. As well as the main reason I was doing this before the ply was because I didn't have anywhere to clamp to. Whereas with this piece, I have lots of access still, so I don't really have to worry about clamping anything down because it'll be really accessible even with that marine ply installed. So I'm gonna mark these and then I'm gonna pull them off of the back of this and we can get jumping on the marine ply part. So to get the plywood adhered to the back of this, I have a couple of tools down here. I have my staple gun, I have stainless steel staples, 3/8 long. I have my caulking gun with 5200 mahogany in there. And then of course I have the putty knife, and as well, I also have this putty knife with grooves in it for some of the larger areas to make sure the adhesion is good. So the plan is to just wipe everything off, get all the dust out of here, maybe tape some areas as well, and then apply the 5200 onto the back of this, move it around with the putty, get everything nice and even, and then we can put the plywood into place and begin fastening it to the back of this. So I have my feed rate too high on the gun and the hole too small, so I don't want to waste this. I'm just going to cut it open and paste it on directly. It's not ideal, but it's better than wasting a whole tube of this. So live and learn. Make sure you cut the holes on the end big enough if you're doing a little bit of a faster application. So unfortunately I didn't get to use all of the 5200. This is kind of a disaster. Not exactly stoked this happened, but we made use of it. So we got the 5200 up here. You can see we got it applied to the back of the transom. You know, it's not perfect, but I'm just gonna go around, clean up any of the little drips that are coming down, and then we can apply the plywood onto that after. So just give me a quick second. I'm gonna clean this up and then we'll go to the plywood. So we got our giant piece here. Don't necessarily need a clamp, as we can kind of use it like a big sticker. And I'm just gonna try to get this centered before I push it onto here. That's where it'll be. Now I will just clamp it down, because I want to make sure the edges are lining up. I'm not going to go super hard. And then I'm just going to take a look at the edge right here. So I can come over just a ways, do a little clamp here as well. So I verified that the transom ply is in place and that everything fits where it should fit. So I'm just going to quickly start with the first staple. As always, if you are like me and enjoy seeing things with your eyeballs, make sure you put one of these on. I've only been hit in the eye once while working, and it was from a stapler. So make sure you wear your safety glasses. So we got the middle, and we're going to work our way out, making sure that we kind of push this out like a sticker. You don't want to start in this end and work your way forward. The piece will kind of shift and then it won't line up very well. So now that we got that, we're going to follow where the battens are, go along, and get that all stapled. I'm also kind of working my way from the top down to the bottom. So you want to go from the middle, do the whole middle portion, work your way out a little bit this way, and then kind of come up to the top and work down. That way I know the bottom of it and the middle of it are completely rock solid. You can always tap it to make sure if you're actually contacting, as well as I have the bottom off, so I can just kind of take a little look behind here, but it's very obvious when it's not. And there we go. That piece of wood is installed. Again, if you're new to the channel, quick disclaimer, this is marine ply. This isn't traditional ply, like plywood that you'd find for a house. It is designed for this application. In case you're wondering if this is your first time here, I just thought I'd quickly mention that. But regardless, this piece is installed. There's lots of tight areas. Nothing is loose on here, so I'm really excited with that. Now I'm just gonna quickly tidy up the area here, and then I can begin shaping this to make it a little bit closer to what the end product is gonna be. So that's got the corners all rounded and kind of generally cleaned up. I'm gonna leave the top edge for now until I start working on the actual bottom of the boat so I can get the height set perfectly to where I need it. But that's what it looks like. This is our first piece of anything that we've actually kind of installed permanently back onto the boat. Now I didn't paint the back of this simply because I want really good adhesion onto the battens here. Now that the bottom is off, it's a lot easier for us to go in here and paint this. If you had the bottom on and you were doing this, it's probably better to paint it beforehand. But yeah, that being said, we can kind of paint it whenever now. But before this dries, this 5200, I do have a day cure time, but I'm just gonna take the time now to clean this up, get all the edges nice and neat, make sure everything is good to go, and then that should pretty much be it. That's gonna do it for the video today, guys. Make sure you tune back next week when we start installing the planks onto the back of this. I'd also like to thank 2 new members to our membership who signed up as deckhand. Appreciate you guys, and we will be having a special video coming out in March that will be the first of many to come. So if you guys want to see those videos that come out only to the members, part of the membership there, make sure you sign up. There's a little join button at the bottom. And lastly, the hats are actually in the final stage of being designed and produced. So we have the designs ready to go. We have what they're going to look like. We got all of the material sorted. So we're just waiting on finalizing everything before we put the order through. But we will be releasing a special teaser of what they're going to look like on the channel as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But until next week, see ya.